The great Burger King breakfast lunch detective has been identified. The case is about to be cracked wide open. Haledon, New Jersey is the officer's department, and the officer is Sergeant Michael Palmer. Let's talk about it. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Now, last week, forgetting the power of the internet and forgetting, irresponsibly, I might add, that the internet is undefeated and will remain so for the rest of time, I issued a challenge to my audience to find and identify the officer and the department in question. Within an hour, I had tons of emails from my audience members. Many of them were able to link me to a story that linked me to the TikTok user that originally posted the Burger King Great Breakfast Lunch Caper investigation video, and he is none other than Mark Vermylen. Now, I was able to reach out to Mark on TikTok, which I didn't even know was a thing you could do because I don't use TikTok. And I was able to get him to give me a little bit of backstory. Mark sent me over the original body cam, and he agreed to sit down with me and do an interview. So as a treat for you guys, I have an exclusive opportunity to interview Mark Vermylen, the victim of the Great Burger King Caper.
Morning, how you doing? I'm Sergeant Palmer from the Health and Police Department. Everything is audio and video recorded. The reason I stopped you is when you turn on Norwood Street, you put your mic on pretty close to the turn. You're supposed to do it 150 feet.
Okay.
Okay, you were within that.
All
Makes people behind you stop and help you.
Okay. Which one is Norwood Street?
Like you turn left on.
Okay. From the mains, from that street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where you come from?
I was at my house. I got some lunch, and then I'm heading back to my house.
Where'd you get lunch?
Burger King.
Okay. Where you from?
I'm from Franklin Lakes.
Franklin Lakes. You have your license on you? Why's your hand shaking so much?
My hands?
Hands shaking on the steering wheel.
Just hungry.
Just hungry?
Yeah. Maybe a little blood sugar.
Diabetic?
No.
Okay. You have registration insurance?
Insurance.
Or you show me that inside of 101.
It's my parents' vehicle.
10-4.
How old are you?
29.
You ever been arrested before?
Nope.
No. So let me check your license, okay? I'm going to get breakfast. It's 12:50 in the afternoon. Mark, you work?
Yeah, I run my own business.
Oh, where's that?
It's an online business.
Oh, okay. So you came all the way down to Haledon to get some breakfast?
It's the closest Burger King. You know, the double cheeseburger is actually the most, like dollars per calorie. It's the most valuable, economical source of food that was ever created.
Gotcha. Would you DoorDash it or something?
Not picked it up.
Oh, you went through the drive-thru?
Yeah.
Who's like, you said that car?
Why?
There's a mess you step out of the car.
But is there a reason?
Yeah, I think there's something else going on. Can you step out of the vehicle?
What do you think is going on?
When you get out of the vehicle, I will speak to you back here about it.
Do I have to do that?
Yes? Or I will arrest you for obstruction. Can you put your hands up over here for me? You got anything that can poke me, stick me, anything like that?
No, sir.
Nothing like that? No weapons or anything? Can you turn around and face me? So you went down and went to the drive-thru. I saw you go down. You came back pretty quickly. So you were able to get down to the drive-thru that fast?
Yeah, there's no one why.
Gotcha. Is there anything, any kind of narcotics or anything in the vehicle?
No, sir.
No?
I'm just a guy, just doing my job, going to get lunch, going back to my house.
Okay. Can you just look at me straight in the eyes? Close your eyes for me. Close them. Close them until I tell you to open them. Now open them. Okay. Do you use any kind of medications or anything?
No.
No? Okay. Because your pupils are very, very tight.
Okay.
You don't have any history of narcotics or anything? No? Okay. Do you mind if I search your vehicle?
I do mind, actually.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, I'm going to call a canine.
Sure.
Okay. No problem.
So the canine's going to search my vehicle?
The canine's going to do an exterior sniff of your vehicle. If it detects narcotics inside of your vehicle, that gives you the right to search your vehicle.
And what's the probable cause here?
Everything I just said, the amount of shaking you're doing, the fact that you went down so quickly and you came back up, and I noticed you were grasping the steering wheel.
What are you
You were grasping the steering wheel like you were on the way down, like you were 10 and 2, like holding on. I watched you go down and come back up.
You're supposed to grasp the steering wheel at 10.
Okay, so here's the options. I'm either going to call a canine, or you can consent to the search.
But they're both a search, right?
If the canine indicates on narcotics in the vehicle,
That clears to 101.
It gives me-
negative on the way.
it gives me the right to search your vehicle. If he does not indicate on narcotics in your vehicle, there's no search.
Okay. All right, get the canine.
Okay. 1 1/4.
Sure.
Can you see if you can start me a canine? My location. You said you went down and picked up
10-4.
breakfast.
Not
12.
breakfast, lunch.
You said breakfast to me.
That's it, breakfast. Lunch. It's a burger. I mean, a burger can be a breakfast food.
That clears to
It's
101.
12:50.
Narcotics canine.
Okay, so I meant lunch. Yeah, I got a call at 1. Can I grab my phone and text the guy to say I can't make the call?
Sure.
Grab my phone. It's right.
When's the last time you ate something?
I had 2 eggs for breakfast.
Okay, so you had 2 eggs for breakfast, but you said that you had low blood sugar from not eating.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of food.
It takes a long time of not eating to get low blood sugar.
I don't know.
But do you see why, like, it's
Honestly, no, I don't.
it's just not adding up to me.
That I went to get lunch and I'm driving back home.
No, you told me you went to get breakfast. It's 12:50 in the afternoon.
I meant lunch.
Okay, and your hand, when you went to hand me your license, was just like shaking. Like,
Is that a
there's a normal
That clears
level of
101
nervousness
canine unit.
to a motor vehicle stop. There is, but when your hand begins to visibly shake,
Do I seem nervous now?
yes,
Okay. Is that a crime?
it's not a crime. It's just an indication to me that there may be something more to the stop.
Alright, whatever you say.
Listen, man, if there's nothing going on, you'll be on your way.
I know, I'm pretty confident that's going to be the case.
Okay.
We got
Wouldn't
two,
it be the
two
listen?
cruisers
It
here.
wouldn't be the first time a canine didn't indicate on a vehicle and you went about your way. It's not the first time it happened in my career.
Okay.
So it doesn't bother me whether it happens or it doesn't.
Yeah, it's just a waste of all of our time.
No, it's not. I'm not even doing my job.
Okay, by pulling over me.
And looking for criminal activity, yes.
Okay. Alright. You're the police officer.
And you're also coming out of a neighborhood known for narcotics distribution.
Okay. But there's also Burger King. The closest
Okay.
Burger King to my house.
I'm telling you the reasons that they all add up to me. You don't have to agree with them. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. But you're asking me as a man why, and I'm explaining it to you.
Alright, I just like, what are you looking for? You're hoping to find narcotics?
I'm not hoping to
That's what
find
I'm
anything. I just think that your story is a little distorted. You know, your level of nervousness is a little high. So I think there could possibly be something going on. There's been plenty of times that people have told me there's nothing going on, and we've found handguns.
Okay.
So again, like I said, nothing personal. If the canine doesn't indicate, Everybody goes on about their day.
Alright. I gotta missing this call in 2 minutes.
You can come over here, but stand over here so that way people they don't get hit by the car.
So just to be clear, now I'm filming now. So
That's fine.
something
I'm
missing.
filming also.
Just to be clear, the reason I was pulled over is because I signaled within 150 yards or feet, 150 feet of the turn.
Mhm.
And now we have the
You're supposed to signal 150 feet before the turn.
before it.
Yeah.
And
So
I did
it's
within.
considered an abrupt turn,
Yep.
which means somebody can hit the rear of you. Okay, so you didn't signal in the proper amount of time, so that's why I stopped you. Yes.
Okay. And then you stop me and you think I have narcotics on me.
So you're just going to skip everything in between and go right to that part of your story?
I mean, I just think the reasons.
It's funny because you took out your phone and you skipped an entire part of the narrative that's on this body camera.
Okay.
You took out your phone and you decided to skip
I
an
comply.
entire. Listen, you can film all you want. Everything is being recorded, audio and video. I have no problems with it. My name is Sergeant Palmer, badge number 015. This is Officer Ducci. This is Officer Refat. Film all you want.
But so just to be clear, the reason you took me out of the car and wanted me to get out of the car is because I said breakfast instead of lunch, and you said my hand was shaking.
You can open request the body cam footage, sir. You should know what's going on in the motor vehicle stop at this time.
Okay, I think I just summed it up. So it sounds
Well, you skipped a lot on your recording. You're missing a lot of information.
All right, so tell me what I said.
You're not going to narrate what's going on here.
Right, then you
Okay, I have a
narrate.
body camera that's going to do that for everyone. You're not going to narrate. You can film. I have no problem with you filming.
Okay.
But any questions that you want answered at this point right now, you can request the body camera footage. I'm not going to sit here and entertain this back and forth. We're not children.
No, we're not. We're adults. We're now just waiting for the canine here. How long does it usually take the canine to come?
There's no set time.
Like 10 minutes, an hour?
We don't have our own personal canine. We have to wait for another agency.
Where's it coming from?
State County Sheriff's Department.
Which town is that in?
They're in Wayne, but I don't know where the canine officer is currently on the road.
No reason for you to be mad at me. I'm compliant.
I'm not mad. I'm waiting for your next question.
I think that's it for now.
You good now? Okay.
I'm sure I'll think about it.
Okay, I'm right here when you're ready.
Pretty inquisitive guy.
Inquisitive. That's a good one. I like that word.
It's a good word.
That's a very good word.
Curious.
Mm-hmm. Inquisitive is kind of like what I am on this car stop.
It's true.
You know?
Very.
Very. I don't know what time or how long the canine's going to take. So you're right. I'm not going to waste anybody's time. Okay? I'm just going to give you the summons for improper signal, and we're going to be on our way. All right, like I said, the only reason we're canceling this is because we don't have the time for the canine. And I don't want to sit here and hold up your time in your business.
I
Phone
appreciate
call.
that.
All right? So I'm not going to sit here and play games. Like I said, if I had a direct time, we'd be waiting. All right? So this is the reason I stopped you, and that's why you got the summons. Improper signal.
Gotcha.
Okay? Now we can go about our day.
Now we can go about our day. Thank you, officers.
Now, in Googling, trying to find a picture of Sergeant Palmer, I was actually surprised to learn that he had been hailed as a hero last June for some extraordinary rescue effort that he made of an autistic child in a body of water. So let's take a look at what the press release said about that. So this is on June 4th, 2024, Sergeant Palmer, while assisting the Patterson Police Department, displayed remarkable instincts, supervision, and dedication by checking Molly Ann Brook, a location known for its potential dangers to wandering autistic children. Thanks to Sergeant Palmer's quick thinking and determination, Sergeant Palmer found the 8-year-old child who was unclothed and covered in water and mud in waist-deep water. With great compassion, Sergeant Palmer carried the child to safety as if he were his own, ensuring him that everything would be okay. Now, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around how the person who's conducting this traffic stop is the same person who is responsible for this sort of act of kindness, I guess, as it were. But it wouldn't surprise me to learn that what he actually did was try to stop and identify this 8-year-old child because he's clearly in a high crime area of Molly and Brooke, where the autistic go to sell their drugs and push pills and fentanyl. And after not being able to get any answers from this likely nonverbal child, he probably took him under arrest and then found out at the station that it was all because of autism. I'm being sarcastic and probably not in a fair way, but it's just hard for me to see that this same person could be responsible for these two things. So anyway, I don't know what to think about that, other than that, how many other autistic children could he have helped, or how many silver alerts could he have helped, or how many other services to the community he could have undertaken in the process of spending 20 minutes with Mark harassing him over his lunch. Now, my intention was to originally just break down this body cam video because it is a 20-minute body cam, but you really don't see anything of relevance other than what I first originally showed on the channel. Much of the analysis that I would do was kind of already done in the previous video, but I did go over some of that analysis with Mark, and it's embedded in the interview that we had. So without going too much further, I'll just roll the interview with Mark, and then we'll pick it up and close it out after it's done. So tell me about before you decided to be Halidon's Most Wanted. What was Mark up to? And tell me how to say your name, because I said Vermylen, but
Vermylen.
Vermylen.
It's
Okay.
pronounced Vermylen. Yep.
So what do you do, and what's your presence like on TikTok? How did we get here before you became the #1 target of the Halidon Police Department?
Sure. So I'm actually the founder of House Pickleball, which is a lifestyle and paddle brand based out in New York City. I'm in New Jersey right now, but I was in tech sales 3 years ago. I was laid off. So I took that experience with like e-commerce and marketing, seeing a new sport on the rise. You know, I did what any enterprising young salesperson in New York City does. These days, you start a brand, you start making content. So now we sell customized paddles to big brands like Corona, Buick, Tinder, like those types of.
It's just sort of like a white label type thing, and then they put their own.
Yeah, well, it has our branding on it. It's our paddle, but I also host events in the city. I do collaborations with other creators and brands. I'm actually looking into opening my own pickleball club in the city.
That's awesome. Prior to now, if you don't have to tell me exactly, but like, what's your age range? Are you 20 to 25, 25
I'm 29.
29. Okay.
Yep.
So prior to this, had you had any run-ins with, you may not even consider this a run-in with law enforcement, it's fairly mild, but had you had any run-ins with law enforcement?
I've been pulled over maybe half a dozen times. It's funny, actually. The first time I was ever pulled over was when I was 17, about 6 months after getting my driver's license. And it was an incident kind of similar to this, where the officer wanted to search the car, said that they could smell the odor of marijuana emanating from the car, which there wasn't any. And he pulled me over for speeding, which I was, because I had entered a school zone, didn't realize it.
Okay.
So I was guilty of that. But he held me for about 30 minutes and kind of did the same, like, you know, trying to trip me up, like intimidate me type of thing. And back then I was definitely intimidated because I was 17. I remember he said the same thing, you know, why are your hands shaking? And yeah, I was thinking, because I'm just got my license, I'm getting pulled over, and now this cop's telling me I got drugs in the car. He wants to search it. Yeah.
It's actually funny. If you go back and watch that video, when you hand him your stuff, his hand is shaking badly. It's
interesting.
You should watch that video and try your best to detach yourself from being there and try to pay it, because you'll notice the signal light thing I told you about. It's like a second and a half from the time that he turns on. Now, law enforcement officers get an exemption under the law, but the point is, he's stopping you for something that he is determining is unsafe. He's doing the thing, and the whole time that you're talking with him, he's actually projecting his stuff onto you, because again, he's saying you're shaking. Well, you know, I'm on a traffic stop. That's going to be a natural thing for anybody that's on a traffic stop. I assume that you're going to contest the citation in court.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Have you looked at the law? Have you looked at the law yet on it?
On the blinker?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the law, actually. All I know is that in most states it's 100 feet, but I guess New Jersey is 150 feet.
No, just in his mind. New Jersey's also 100 feet. That's the reason that I was I was asking you. But it's important to know how to approach this type of stuff. Now, obviously, you're a smart guy. I'm not going to sit here and, assume that you don't know how to do this. But The actual law says 100 feet. It doesn't say 150 feet. And I was watching the body cam video and watching it back, and this dumb fuck signals and then turns 1.5 seconds afterwards. Now, that means that he's pulling you over for something that he's committing.
Oh, from his car, you
From his
actually
car.
clocked the
Yeah.
when he's interesting.
Yeah, and so I don't know what the speed limit is, but I'm assuming that the speed limit is probably like 25 or 30 miles an hour, or 35 at the most on Norwood Street, right? It's a city street in overregulated New Jersey. I expect that they're probably going to be 25, 30 miles an hour. So the point that I'm trying to make is, when you're a police officer, you learn how to gauge people's speed based on how much distance they move so if you want to pace somebody, you need to be doing the exact same speed as them, and you need to be able to surreptitiously follow them for a couple blocks, like a quarter of a mile, in order to really know what their speed is. But cops, because they don't math very well, they will be like, okay, well, that guy's doing 40 and I had to do 93 to catch up to him, so he must have been doing 93, right? Because that's how they math. So it becomes evident to me that, the way that you would cross-examine this guy is to say, well, I noticed that you were sitting stationary at the time that the body cam video started. That means you weren't moving and I was moving. So where was I? Where was my vehicle when you observed me? How far away from this turn was I? So you were looking for 150 feet. Okay, fine. How do you gauge 150 feet? Can you show me some sort of landmark? Was there a fire hydrant?
Right.
And he's not going to have any good answers for that. Now, the point I was trying to make here when I was talking to Mark is that, look, we can figure out how far somebody is or how close somebody is to a particular object by just taking the speed that their vehicle is traveling and converting it to feet per second. If a person's going 30 miles per hour, they're going roughly 44 feet per second. So in order to get to a place where you would have 100 feet, you would have to go 1 second is 44 feet, 2 seconds is 88 feet. So you'd have to go for at least over 2 seconds in order to satisfy the 100-foot requirement. Well, so you need to be able to ask the officer, well, how far away were you? How far did you track me traveling? What speed was I going? If you're traveling 25 miles per hour, you're going 36 feet per second. So that's even longer that you have to wait to get to 100. But keep in mind, this officer is making the argument that he didn't go 150 feet. So he's applying the wrong standard. He doesn't even know what he's looking for. So there's no way this holds up. But the point I was trying to make to Mark was that this is how you can kind of corner him on cross-examination when you start asking him questions when you contest this citation. So the only evidence that he's going to be able to come with will be just his observations. And the point I'm trying to make is, he actually misunderstood the law. The law says 100 feet. He wants you to signal 150 feet. So if you signaled anywhere outside of 100 but less than 150, even if he could articulate how he came to the 150, he's still wrong, which means that he still stopped you for a reason that wasn't a legal traffic stop, and he still violated your Fourth Amendment rights by doing that. Keep in mind, in order to be able to conduct a lawful traffic stop under the Terry standard, because a lot of states, specifically New Jersey, bifurcate their infractions, their traffic infractions, from crimes. And so there are separate standards. If you are stopping someone for a Terry detention in a vehicle and you're performing a traffic stop based on reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime has been committed, that's okay under Terry. But in New Jersey, if you're not stopping the person for a crime, you're stopping them for a traffic infraction, you actually have to have more than reasonable articulable suspicion. You have to have probable cause in order to perform that stop. So again, when we're talking about civil infractions, it's probable cause. When you're talking about crimes, it's reasonable articulable suspicion. So you need one of those two standards. Well, in this particular situation, this is a state where crimes are separate from traffic infractions. And so he needs probable cause. You can't ever establish probable cause if A, you don't know the actual standard of what the law is asking for. In other words, he thought it was 150 feet. It's actually 100. And B, we can tell just by the fact that he doesn't know what the legal standard is that he wouldn't have thought well enough in advance to figure out where he was sitting and how far away and all that stuff, right? And I think he just threw the, high crime area in there just to sort of make it justified or maybe lessen the pushback a little bit from Mark. But the point is, we don't have a good stop under Terry. Then we're going to have an exit order that is based only on trying to catch this guy in a lie, not about officer safety. And then we're going to have a pat down that is not anchored to any sort of objective information that he was armed and dangerous. Exactly the opposite of that, actually. And then on top of that, we're going to have an unreasonable extension of the traffic stop. And so that's the reason why this would be a slam dunk given.
Okay.
Had he found a body in your trunk or 20 pounds of cocaine or whatever he thought you were doing, other than lunch, it would have all been subject to suppression because he fucked it up from Jump Street. But the way that we generally deal with these cases is that it's usually somebody's liberty at stake. It's usually somebody who actually is riding dirty, who gets caught with something they're not supposed to have. And then
Right.
the court just dismisses it and throws out the evidence. And it's not like a situation where there's a lawsuit, because generally the person is actually guilty of the thing they're charged with. It's just the question is, are we going to allow the evidence against them to come in spite of the fact that it was obtained through a constitutional violation? And it just depends on the circumstances as to whether or not I'll be honest with you, the courts are real bad to ratify bad conduct where there's something at stake to lose, like a body or some major dope. You know what I mean? So,
Yep. Yeah, you hear about it all the time. I mean, the IA detective today clocked me. He was like, "You seem to have some sort of like, you either read up on this stuff," or I'm like, "Well, I was a government major in college, so like that's kind of like I didn't go to law school or anything, but I've always had an interest in those types of things." And then, of course, once this happened, then yeah, I started reading up on what happens in this situation, like what's the law say, what's the Constitution say.
So the
Yep.
Rodriguez case was a good example of that. It was actually, there was a guy named Dennis Rodriguez. He was riding on the shoulder of the roadway, and the police officer stopped him for riding on the shoulder of the roadway.
Mhm.
And he asked him all these same itinerary questions that he asked you. And then all the time, though, what they're supposed to be doing is working on the citation. So if Palmer is sitting in the car and he's talking to you and he's asking you these questions as he's actually working on the citation, even if he's kind of going slow rolling it a little bit, as long as he's working, the court said you have to be investigating the reason for the stop. And only when you have something other than the reason for the stop that is actually reasonable, articulable suspicion. And the way that I describe that is you have to have enough that you could walk up on the street and say, "Hey, I need you to stop, and we're going to have an investigatory detention." If you don't have enough under the Terry versus Ohio standard to actually detain somebody, then you can't pivot your failure to signal in 150 feet investigation into a criminal wrongdoing investigation in the absence of something that would be compelling enough for you to stop them on the side of the road and say, "Hey, you got to stay here with me." Okay.
Mhm.
So, under Terry versus Ohio, the deal was these guys were like looking in a jewelry store window, and they were looking and they were walking to the end of the corner and they were meeting up, and then they would come back separately and the other person would look in. And it was like, that combination, the totality of those things all put together was like, something doesn't seem right here. It seems like these guys are getting ready to pull a heist or a stick up on this store. And the
Mhm.
detective McFadden was like a 35 or 40-year detective with Cleveland PD. He was a specialist in pickpockets and watching the criminal element, and that was the totality of the circumstances included his training and experience and how people conduct themselves before they do this type of thing. And that's why under all of these things, it was like these guys looked like they were up to no good, and all of these things came together. It didn't make any sense for people to be meeting on a corner and each of them individually going and looking through this one jewelry store window, right?
Mhm.
That's the level of like suspicion that you need in order to be like, "Hey, let's snatch your liberty for just a minute and ask you some tough questions." What
Right.
happens more times than not is that police officers, they do not have good training on what their constitutional authority is. And so what over time becomes the substitute of that constitutional parameters is their ego. And the second that they stop you and they ask you a question, if they feel like you're not being honest with them, it's a challenge to their ego to try to figure out what you're lying about. And so then
Mhm.
it becomes more about your pushback and it's contempt of cop is what we call it. And that becomes the entirety of their investigation. And if you flip flop that with like the approach they use on the first 48, for instance, where they bring somebody in and they want to build rapport and they'll play, "Oh man, I know you just want to get this off your chest. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like." You know what I'm saying? Like, they actually want to make people feel comfortable with talking to them so that they can get the valuable information. You flop
Mhm.
that with a regular patrol guy who just is never going to be a detective. He doesn't know how to seek anything other than reassurance for his ego. So he's never going to get people to talk to him. He's never going to gather this information. And his great, investigations are going to be like investigations into Mark and why he decided on Burger King of all the things to eat.
Yeah. And it
So
makes you wonder why guys like that are tasked with doing what seems to be drug interdiction.
the parts that I was able to get off of just the short form content that I actually created to or stitched together to create my first video was only maybe 4 or 5 minutes worth of video. I think that's the video that you posted
Uh-huh.
ultimately. So, but the video is actually 20 minutes. He actually held you for 20 minutes before he gave you a citation. At what point did you feel like I may not be going home? I mean, that had to cross your mind, like I might be getting arrested and I don't know why.
Well, it was when he threatened to arrest me was when I realized it was a more serious type of situation because he asked me to step out of the car and I was not too keen to do that. So I said, hey, just what happens if I don't do that? He says, well, I'll arrest you for obstruction. So at that point, I had a decision to make. But that was where I realized that, oh, this is like he's got something else on his mind that's not
Yeah.
just this blinker.
Okay. So because you'd have a previous experience where you got the whole sort of 20 questions game when you were younger, you didn't realize that necessarily with anything was out of place with the initial questioning. You thought that was just fairly standard cop interaction stuff.
Yeah, basically up until he asked me to get out of the car. Like I was
Yeah.
still just kind of entertaining his questions and like telling him literally what I had gotten for lunch. Like the burger was sitting right there.
The other thing that's important in as it relates to your case is that I noticed that it's only about it was less than 3 minutes, or maybe it was right at 3 minutes is all it took him the time to go in there actually write the summons. That makes the stop and the amount of time that he took even more egregious. In the Rodriguez case, that is the landmark decision for this sort of unreasonable extension of a traffic stop departing from the original mission. There was only 8 minutes. So the deal was, or 9 minutes. The deal was, it was like Rodriguez was given a warning citation and then he was like, I need to leave. And the guy was like, no, I want to search your car. And Rodriguez was like, no, you can't search my car. And he's like, well, hold on. I'm going to further detain you after the traffic stop was over in order to go get a canine. And it was only 8 or 9 minutes. And if we take your stop and we look at the amount of time it would have taken him to run your information and issue the citation, in the absence of all this nonsense that you went through, we're probably talking about 5 to 6 minutes. And so if you look at it from just a percentages, he probably 3 or 4x to the amount of time that it would have taken to conduct this traffic stop had he been acting within the reasonable scope of the mission of the stop to begin with. The traffic stop was unlawful from its inception. And then in addition to that, he added insult to injury. And then ultimately, I think we probably wouldn't be here had he just been like, you know what, man, I think I just misread this situation and I'm sorry for wasting your time. And then my guess is you would have never posted this and then you would have been done with it. You know?
Probably not. Yeah.
When you were talking to the IA people, did you indicate to them that you were potentially seeking outside counsel to potentially file a lawsuit and that their response to it would have some impact on that? Or you just played
No.
it straight?
Played it straight.
Yeah. And you came away with the impression that they were at a minimum giving the appearance that they were taking it seriously?
Yeah. Seriously, but maybe not to like giving the appearance that it was pretty routine or that they weren't too worried about it. But, they said they're committed to transparency and all those things and just kept a pretty neutral kind of tone. Yeah.
Has the department acknowledged in it, or have they even come close to saying, hey, look, we might have, have they said they're sorry? Is it anything like that?
No, and if you go on their Facebook page, there's a lot of angry Americans on there. They post things like have breakfast with a cop or not have pizza with a cop, and people are like, will this be breakfast or lunch? And just making so they're aware because they've gotten a flood of I became aware of that about a week ago that people were actually going to the Facebook page of the department and leaving comments.
I don't know if you did any sort of background on this Palmer guy, but they hailed him as a hero last year.
I saw that.
And I have an autistic daughter, so that kind of thing is she's high functioning and married and living her own life and living independently. But I thought to myself when I read that, I thought it's strange that this is the same person, because how many people who could have potentially received his help if he had a heart for service like that got overlooked in the process of him trying to figure out your lunch order. You know what I mean? Like, in all seriousness, this wasn't about lunch. It was really more of a perfect example of how you can never satisfy the curiosity of a suspicious police officer. You know,
Mhm.
it really is just an injunction to, as I say in every video, keep your evidence to yourself, because there is not anything that you could tell a police officer to dispel his suspicion. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be born out of anything that resembles reasonable suspicion in the first place. There's no requirement that police officers have the legal standard of reasonable suspicion when they start asking you questions. It only
Mhm.
matters that they have what the law would consider enough for an investigatory detention, so reasonable articulable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot at the time that they make the seizure. Once they make the seizure, so let's say that he sits at that intersection every single day, and he knows what 100 feet is. And so every single time the person passes that fire hydrant that he's got measured out previously at 100 feet as a reference point or a landmark, and they have yet failed to signal, and then they turn, he knows that. That's, you know, so let's say that that's the case. Then you have a good stop, and then the fishing expedition is unlimited until you limit it by saying, I'm not going to answer any more of these questions. Here's my,
Mhm.
will you stop me for this? Let's do that. I'm not interested in it. You know what I mean? Then it's up to you to put an end to that conversation. And most people do not do that, because most people probably realize the truth, which is that their life's going to be harder for the next 20 minutes if they put up a fight, as opposed to just answering the questions, right? But as you can see,
Yeah.
honest
You
answers
always
don't get you
think
anywhere.
yeah, you always think you can like, oh, if I just show like that, if I show who I really am, that I'm just a nice, reasonable, easygoing person, they'll see that too. But it doesn't always go like that.
Yeah, it only works if it's a two-way street and both people are
Right.
operating on good faith and reasonableness. And so when you have a person that is convinced that you're up to something, the only thing that's ever going to make a difference is if they either catch you, run out of time, or you submit, right? And
Mhm.
just let them do whatever they want to do, because they're never going to be satisfied. And then I guarantee you that if that guy called a K9 and that K9 came over and that K9 did not alert on the car, he would still be convinced that you were doing something that you weren't doing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Um, what was the reason that you decided? I noticed that it was like about the time when he said, are you have a problem with me searching the car?" And you said, "I do actually have a problem with that." What was the thing that caused you to draw the line in the sand there and say, "Okay, this has gone far enough"?
I just don't consent to searches. I just have always had that. I'm kind of like a constitution nerd and just like big on the rights and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's just like my default response.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm glad you did that. I do think that that's what obviously, well, I actually think that the traffic stop was unreasonably extended prior to that, because the case that allows him to get you out of the car is called Pennsylvania versus Mims. Their reasoning for getting you out of the car is supposed to be anchored to officer safety. It doesn't have to be, and actually that case comes from Philadelphia. It doesn't have to be.
Oh, that's the one I was thinking of. Then the
Yeah, yeah.
Rod, I thought it was Rodriguez that was there
No,
in
no, yeah.
Pennsylvania.
So Mims is 1977. Mims started out as a. So what happened was there was a Philadelphia police officer, and every single time he stopped somebody, which there's a language in the opinion on Mims that says in due course, or as a matter of routine. Every single person that he stopped, something about the way that the streets are in Philadelphia, he always had them stand over to the passenger side on the sidewalk and have this conversation, because he
Mhm.
felt like it was safer for both him and the person that he stopped not to be in the lane of traffic while traffic was going by, right? So what the court said was that as a precaution for officer safety, or as a matter of due course as a precaution for officer safety, was fine. What they said was that the actual seizure happens when the traffic stop happens. And so the only question is whether or not you're going to receive your ticket or have this conversation with him at the roadside, or whether you're going to be standing in the lane of traffic while you do it. You're still seized for the purposes of the Fourth Amendment. And so what the court said was that it's a minimal intrusion for you to have to stand outside the vehicle as a precaution for officer safety when it's weighed against the government's interest in keeping the police officer safe, right?
Yep.
And so that's what Mims was all about. But it's supposed to be about officer safety. It became clear to me that the nervousness and your answers to the question, and him wanting to get you out of the car so that he could potentially intimidate you into admitting some wrongdoing, was actually the reason. Now, a smart and articulate police officer, take that for what it is, can tie that back to officer safety, because they can say, well, yeah, but he was nervous, he was shaken, and I was concerned that if I went back to my car without being able to see his hands and that kind of thing, he was acting, he's doing furtive movements, whatever. They'll find a way to be able to make it seem like they were getting you out of the car. But the truth is that most police officers do not understand that MIMS is about officer safety, because most of them have never read the case. They're just relying on the older guy that told them, hey, if you want to get him out of the car, MIMS says you can, right? And so most people have never read it, and most lawyers had never read it. And before I started doing this channel, I'd read it maybe once or twice, because when you get into your daily stuff, you just do your daily stuff and it's not something that you focus on. But MIMS also allows them to get out of the car for officer safety. But in MIMS, what happened was, the actual case, this guy got out of the car, and as he got out of the car, the officer in MIMS noticed that he had a bulge in his jacket. And so the officer patted him down the same way that this Sergeant Palmer patted you down. The difference was that officer had the objective information that he was armed and potentially dangerous, simply because he noticed a bulge in the jacket. And so what the court said was that, pursuant to our holding in Terry versus Ohio, when the officer noticed the bulge in Mims's jacket, then he was good to do a pat down, because Terry says you can stop a person just because you believe criminal activity is afoot based on totality of the circumstances. But in order to pat them down, you need some objective information that would lead a reasonable police officer to believe that the person was armed and dangerous before you can pat them down. So in your case, you have a Fourth Amendment violation because of the stop was bad, because the law says 100 feet, not 150. And then you have an improper exit order given because you were no officer safety threat. But even if that was a proper exit order, you've got a pat down where there was no information. You actually told him you didn't have any weapons. There was no information to lead him to believe that you needed to be pat down. So he violated your rights there. And then we extended the traffic stop. So you just have, the downside is also the upside, because you didn't get your ass beat and you don't have hospital bills and damages and all that stuff. And you didn't go to jail, but you still got your rights violated. And so should you decide to pursue a Fourth Amendment lawsuit, there will be a slam dunk Fourth Amendment violation there. Now, what you get out of it, I don't know. Maybe you just get training for the police officers. Maybe you get a letter of apology. I don't know what your end goal will be, but I, strongly suggest that to the extent you have the patience for it, you should hold them accountable.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of been my thought on it. And I'm glad that it didn't end more seriously than it did. But yeah, the fact remains that it was a rights violation. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I don't think they have any plans as of now to do, like any of the accountability stuff as far as an apology or retraining. I don't know if that's usually the case with the internal investigations. Like, if I'm not looking for money, then I would hope that it could just be resolved through that complaint process. And so yeah, it's a interesting situation.
Yeah, and if you file a suit, it could be that all you get is attorney's fees and some mandated training. That's a lot of times in these cases, that's what you have. But at least you have the satisfaction, not really satisfaction, because I don't get that there's any vendetta here. I think it's just a matter of, I don't want other people to have to go through what I went through, or God forbid it be worse for somebody that,
Right. I think that's it for me. It's just like, obviously I posted the video, so I had some interest in showing other people what had happened. And I think now, at the point that it's gotten the reach it's gotten, it's just, it's like a public utility, just like transparency. We can see how this interaction went down. A lot of people have, thought about what if that happened to me, or pointed out what was wrong. And a lot of people have, like, everyone says phishing. So yeah, I think it's good just from like a discourse perspective that people see it and also understand, like, yeah, it could have been worse. Could have been if I was someone else, if I'm not like a kind of straight laced looking white guy, maybe it goes south. Who knows?
Yeah. And then the other thing that you have to consider is there's always this balance. What is the right thing to do? If I do nothing, now 10 million people have seen me make a clown out of this New Jersey police officer who, I mean, let's be fair, he made a clown out of himself, but the point is you posted it, right? all these people have seen it. If you do nothing, does that mean that you're going to get harassed every time you go to New Jersey? If you file a lawsuit, would you have escaped with no further harassment? And then that will be the catalyst for, you know what I mean? You don't know. So what you have to do is you have to decide, what do I gain or lose by doing this? Everything is a risk versus reward calculation. And
Mhm.
in our previous discussion before we started recording, we talked about you being sort of a constitutionalist and a law nerd. And so if that's a principle that you're willing to stand on, just understand there could be some backlash for filing a lawsuit. There could also be some backlash for not. And I'm not sure how to figure out which is going to be which.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm happy I filed the complaint and did the interview process, which like today, which was, took couple hours of my time. But I think, I don't want to rule anything out, but I think that's what I feel good about because that's the process that exists. And I don't think it's a perfect process. I think there are issues with when you have police investigating themselves, but at least that's something. To me, it was like I couldn't just post the video and then just be like, hey, this happened. This was crazy. Like, I wanted to take some steps to get an official sort of accountability.
Well, sure, and they're gonna, the truth is that, Mark, you're obviously a very intelligent, articulate guy. You get somebody out there that's overwhelmed with social anxiety, doesn't know how to
Oh,
act,
yeah.
maybe isn't as articulate or as intelligent, and doesn't know how to handle this. Maybe they have a gross misunderstanding of what they are privileged to do, and then this thing goes very, very differently. To your point.
Right. Exactly. I mean, a lot of people commented like, "Oh, I wish I could be as calm or as chill as you." And like, I'm the way that I am. Like, I hold myself to a high standard and like to control my emotions. But like, a lot of people can't do that. I think that's fine. Like, I think in many ways, I'm a little bit too like flat sometimes in other situations where I'd like to be more expressive. But you're totally right. Anyone that just gets overstimulated more easily or just like has is less at this stage in their life like sure of themselves and what they're saying or even just not knowing the law as well, they're gonna it makes for a more unpredictable situation and it's not gonna be as good of an outcome for them. So I
Yeah,
think
no,
in terms of like people for it to happen to, like I'm probably like a better candidate for it and like has less of a chance of it going sideways. But yeah, I think that's a great point about just like different types of people and like how they handle stressful situations.
well, sure, and just like 17-year-old you obviously would have handled that situation much differently, right? And so that's it's interesting. I do hate how righteously indignant he was. He just was absolutely convinced um that it was going to be him whose conduct was shown to be super reasonable when the whole body cam played out. I just felt like these guys cannot be convinced that they're one, they can't see that they're coming from a place of uncontrolled emotion and ego, for
Hmm.
one. And for two, they cannot be convinced that somebody is not up to no good, no matter what the evidence suggests. It's almost like they have to run through their whole process before they can be satisfied. And then they'll still come away with, well, he got me this time, but he won't get me next time. So it's interesting that that happened. Um, Man, I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on and tell the story. Obviously the first thing you have to deal with is this traffic citation. Getting that out of the way and
Yep.
going to beat that in court because the legal standard is different. So I guess the thing that everybody wants to know, that I think there are two questions that my audience would want answered. One, is this going to turn you into any sort of an activist in the area of constitutional rights or cop watching or anything like that?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because I guess I have a bit of a history of like that type of thing. Not really. Like I lived in New York City for 5 years, and like I was there in 2020 and everything, and saw it was the police response to protests there that I saw up close and personal. That I think kind of reignited that like sort of like a patriotic feeling. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
like that this is like I want to keep an eye on these types of things, especially when it's happening to people less privileged than myself. And then it's just funny how life works, that then this happens and it's like, and then I think back to when I was 17 and that other thing, and it's just like I feel like I always am just kind of close to these types of situations. So I don't know if I would use the word activist or just interested
Yeah.
person who will sometimes speak up about things. But yeah, definitely. Like I'm interested in this stuff, and I'll keep talking about it as long as it's an issue.
And the other thing I think that is, I always say this. I say this to my children. I say it to my audience. I say it to everybody. People will show you who they are, and it's your job to believe them. And you've got, your experience at 17, and you've got your experience here, and you've got your experience with the police at 2020. How many more times do they have to show you their character before you understand that that's what they are? And again, I have many friends, very good friends of mine who I love dearly, who are police officers, and
Mhm.
and I don't, I just separate those people from my comments about. But we are
Right.
in a great divide in this country when it comes to how people feel about law enforcement, and this is not helping. This type of stuff is the reason, right? I mean, ultimately, if you take it down to its just elemental nature, why was it so important that he stopped somebody for a perceived shortage of 50 feet prior to signaling? What is that? How is that shaping society? And moreover, helping you as the taxpayer feel like you got your money's worth.
Right. Well, I mean, based on his own comments, that it was part. It seems like it was part of a larger investigation into drug trafficking. Based on
Mhm.
he said he observed me enter the neighborhood, exit the neighborhood. So whatever your thoughts are on stop and frisk policing or like being super active with things, I just wish next time I get pulled over, I'm just gonna have to say I don't answer questions. I'd love to be able to answer questions, especially if it could help them stop actual crime, but at
Yeah.
this point, I've just had too many bad experiences with opening up, saying things that it's like, oh no, you're just trying to use this against me. This isn't actually helping anything.
Yeah, and I actually made this point, and this, if you're a law nerd, you'll probably dig into this and you'll figure it out. So I'm sure you've probably heard about the Idaho college murders,
Yep.
right? So
Tragic.
Brian, yes, absolutely. But and I said this in a live stream with my buddy who owns Audit the Audit. Um, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I said people will always be okay on some level with the police just stopping and identifying people, because a lot of people don't know this, but Brian Koberger got caught because he was stopped by a police officer in that area like 3 months beforehand. And it's a small area. Not that many people drive a white Hyundai Elantra with, Washington plates, right?
Hmm.
So this police officer had remembered stopping Brian Koberger and identifying him, and him driving a white Hyundai Elantra with Washington plates. And lo and behold, 3 months later, these murders happen, and they actually run some sort of a investigation, find out that vehicle is registered to somebody in Pennsylvania, were able to match the DNA because they found a knife sheath at the scene that had a snap, and that snap had Brian Koberger's DNA on it. They were able to match that to the person that was registered to that car as the son of the person that owned that car in
Wow.
Pennsylvania. And then they were able to track his Amazon history and see that he bought a replacement sheath for that knife after the murders and had it shipped to Pennsylvania. And that is the type of thing that people will always make the argument for. Well, we're fine with the police stopping and identifying people because it's worth it if we can solve one homicide in the future. And then there are people like me that are like, hey, I'd rather all the homicides go unsolved than have one person's rights be violated. People ain't
Yeah.
less dead. Like, I get it. Like, I want justice too, but at some point we have to say, okay, not at the expense of all of these people having their rights violated simply because of the off chance, the one in quintillion, that you're going to get a Brian Koberger case, right?
Yeah.
So,
It,
yeah, look into
and
that. That's how that case got solved. It's very
yeah,
interesting.
that's really interesting. And like I applaud that. That sounds like great police work.
Yes,
It's
what real
amazing.
investigators do.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're able to do that. Like but through all this, like I'm not like some like like radical like anti-cop. It's just like I think a lot of what police do with that stuff when there's been serious crimes and people have been hurt, like what they do is amazing. But yeah, I would have to kind of lean back towards your side if it means we have to. Why don't they search our homes all the time then? Because they could stop all crimes, maybe. Like
Well, a lot
it's
of people
not
don't.
how this country was set up.
we're so far removed and so immersed in social media now. A lot of people don't realize that there was a thing that they called general warrants, and that was where the British agents of the crown would say, let's go search Mark's house until we find what we're suspicious of. And the whole Fourth Amendment was drafted to prevent them from doing what police officers do through fishing expeditions right now. And the
Mm.
whole thing was about that. And like our founders would be rolling in their graves over this type stuff, right? I mean, that's what the whole deal was about. Like we literally started a revolution over this stuff, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and so my question, I guess, and then I've got one more question that I know my audience will want to know the answer to. My question is there, what would you have done had he, I mean, I know this is speculating, asking you to speculate, but what
Mm.
would you have done had he just walked up and written the citation? You don't strike me as the type, but you, even at the beginning of our conversation, you still believed that the legal standard was 150 feet. You had no reason, I guess, even since this happened, to question what the legal standard was. So would you have just paid the citation and moved on with your life, or what would you have done?
Yeah, I think I would have just paid it, even though there was still would have been no evidence of it. I just probably would not have thought to give it the time and show up in court and fight it for them to maybe just say, oh, well, they actually don't need the only evidence you need is the officer's eyewitness or something.
Yeah,
So
and see,
it would have just been, I would have just taken it on the chin.
and that's the thing is, like, if I could impart something to police officers, it would be this: almost everything that you're doing is causing the opposite result of what you're looking for. What you're looking for is compliant public that trusts and supports law enforcement. And you've got a guy who would have, had you wasted his 5 minutes of his day and written him a ticket, would have paid this citation and went on with his life. But instead of your need to control and your need to feel, to feed your ego and your need to try to dig around something and make everybody into a suspect, now you are internet famous. 10 million eyeballs have seen you make a complete ass out of yourself. And this guy's going to take time out of his very busy life to go make you look like more of an idiot in traffic court over a ticket he would have paid had you just acted like a normal person.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good
Yeah.
summary
So,
of the situation. Not to mention the IA investigation. He's gonna have to
yeah,
answer
and the potential
questions.
lawsuit that may
Yep.
come. So, and then the other thing is, and I know that my audience will want to know this, is that since you do have a presence on TikTok, and since Wendy's is much more active on social media, are you open to being recruited by Wendy's and to abandon your loyalty to Burger King? Because I know that had it not been for your love of Burger King, we would not be here. So,
Well, James, that's a very good question, and I'll say this: when it comes to marketing things, because that's what I do. I'm a marketer. I I can't really fake it. I've always been a Burger King guy.
oh
I do
man,
not
okay,
see myself being able to go over to Wendy's. Even
okay,
if they roll the Brinks truck up to my door, sure. But I like to vouch for products that I actually use and like actually enjoy. So not that I
that's
don't enjoy Wendy's from time to time,
from time to time, but they don't flame
but
broil it, do they? So,
they do not. No.
and that was a choice they made, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The square patties just never really sat right with me.
Yeah, the rumors of horse meat. There's all kinds of, that I love their marketing. Their social media is top notch, but it's hard to compete with Burger King's flame broiled. And I like that. I like that you're principled like that. I actually had a sponsorship offer from Samsung on my channel, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm an Apple guy. I have a Mac computer. I
Yep.
have an Apple iPhone. Everybody in my family has an Apple iPhone. I just don't think I can represent Samsung to my audience. I don't think I could do it.
That's what it is. If you don't feel you could do a good enough job with the work from the client, then you
Yeah.
can't. In my mind, you can't take it.
And the other thing that happened, but this one felt pretty bad because it was a really good offer, but I got an offer from, well, I won't say the name. I'll cut that part out. I got an offer from a DNA database to do a sponsorship, and I was going to do the sponsorship. And then when it came time to do the terms, they were like, okay, so you order your DNA kit in the mail, and you have to film yourself reacting to the results. And I'm like, wait a minute, my audience has a very healthy distrust of the government.
Mm.
And DNA companies are currently in a lot of hot water over
Yep.
their handling of privacy information and data. And you think me as a defense lawyer is going to put my DNA out and then
Yeah.
tell my audience they should do that too? I don't. I'm not interested in this
That's a
collaboration.
great point. Yeah, it just doesn't. Alignment is just not there.
Yeah, it's not there, and it would be completely antithetical to the position of my audience to invite them for the sake of money to to embark on a journey where they do not keep their evidence to themselves. Right? That would be
Yeah.
not on brand for my channel. So
No,
yeah, I'll
not
turn
on
that
brand at all.
down.
Definitely not.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm
Yeah.
honored that you thought enough of my content to take the time to come on and talk to me. So Mark Vermylen, right? Is that correct?
Yep, that's
All right,
correct.
let's where can people find you? What is your the name of your TikTok? I'll link it in the description, but just so people can try
Yeah,
to find you. And
it's
support
just
your
my
business.
name. It's at Mark Vermylen. And yeah, they can just, if they want to check out the original video, it's there.
And if you're a pickleball player, Mark's business is the pickling of the ball,
Yeah,
and
it's
he
house
will
pickleball.
he will he will help you and guide you in that regard. So good luck on your business, sir. Please stay connected. Let me know what happened. But I really appreciate you hanging out with me, man. And we'll get this out and let people know who the man behind the viral video is. And I thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, James. I
Yeah,
really
man.
enjoyed this.
Anyway, I'd really like to thank Mark again for coming on and having the conversation with me. Thank you guys for sticking it out. I know it was a long video, but I thought that at least part of my audience would find this interview intriguing, given the fact that nobody's ever actually probed and asked what was going on. So I was happy that Mark took the time, thought enough of my content to come on, explain the situation. He is following up. He did do an interview with Internal Affairs on Wednesday. And I have linked him with a civil rights lawyer that I'm familiar with in the Philadelphia area in order to hopefully bring about a lawsuit, depending on how they handle it. But Mark's going to stay with us, keep us up to date, and if we need to update the story or supplement the information along the way, we'll do it. In the event that something comes up that I need to mention or correct or fill in the gaps for, I'll write a companion blog over on Substack. I'd like to invite you over there. That's a newsletter site. It's absolutely free to join. You can join on a paid tier if you want, but you don't have to. That's only for people who want to support the channel monetarily. I don't put anything on Substack that people have to pay for. If you don't want to go to Substack, but you would like to support the channel monetarily, I'll leave my Venmo and PayPal links both here on the screen as well as in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.